host, Willow Chang at Leon. We do broadcast live every Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. right here in the heart of Honolulu, also known as Pioneer Plaza. Don't adjust your dial. I was on a short hiatus due to some heavy-duty projects, the art and the ink. You can follow about that. I posted it on The Art of Life, which was a beautiful collaborative concert I produced with musicians, artists, and writers. And then went to Portland, beautiful Portland last weekend to go and teach. Got to reconnect with a lot of Hawaii people over there and sharpen the saw and be inspired. But I'm happy to be back here live with The Art of Life. It is May 1st, and here in Hawaii, May 1st is not only May Day, but it's also Lei Day. It's a wonderful day dedicated to celebrating family, fauna, flora, and everything beautiful that comes with the gifting of Lei and the celebration of plants. So I hope you're having a beautiful May Day. We also are just at the end of what was National Poetry Month. So those of you who are uninitiated into the fold, April has been declared National Poetry Month. There's many ways that various poets and writers and fans of poetry celebrated the month, whether it was sharing poetry of well-known poets or the Poetry Challenge, which was the 30 for 30, which I actually took on. So what would the 30 for 30 entail? 30 days in the month of April. Challenge yourself to write 30 brand new poems. And I did. And it's not to gloat. It's not necessarily an easy task, but I can say, like running a marathon, it is a worthy pursuit. So I'm going to indulge, hopefully just not myself, but our viewers out there, with some poems. And the hope is that maybe this will inspire you to do something or similar that is meaningful to yourself. So first, it's kind of like interviewing myself, not really the most fun of pursuits, but probably necessary. I feel really lucky because I got into poetry as a young child. I can't think of a time when there weren't poetry books in our house. I think it was Louis Untermeyer, golden books of poetry. And then as I became a teenager, I used to always carry around a notebook, composition book. This was before I discovered the Moleskine books. People now compose and write on their phones and whatever is nearby. But I enjoyed writing poetry, certainly enjoyed reading poetry, took poetry classes as well in high school and throughout college, had the great honor of studying with the late, great Norman Hindley at Punahou School, and was a part of his group called Late Mail, where we would devote our own free time on Saturdays in Old School Hall. We would bring copies of our poetry, read it for our peers, and then receive feedback, which is sometimes regarded as an elbow group. So constructive, positive, sometimes critical, but not ever negative feedback, to sharpen the saw, so to speak. And then later at the University of Hawaii, studied with Frank Stewart, another notable instructor and poet. Also was able to take writing classes at my short stint at Sarah Lawrence College. So poetry is something that is very meaningful to me. It's not necessarily something that I would always share with others, or maybe it would be shared with a selected few. I've had a few forays into having things published in local journals, very small kind, some poetry shows, some poetry readings. But last year I decided to actually buckle down. Sometimes we have to do that. And I wanted to challenge myself and see how much more I could push my writing and have it finding that balance between flow and focus, which is an ideal in no matter what I do, as with many of the guests that we have on The Art of Life. So that being said, I did not give myself a creative prompt in the sense of form or structure. So some people, maybe they like to write odes or sonnets or haiku or long form or found poetry, and those are all wonderful. Sometimes people will ask friends or peers or go to sites where there are prompts, write about a car accident, write about mango season, write about your dog, whatever it may be. Those are all really good ways. And I think the hardest thing to do often is to start. So something that I like to encourage people, whether they're working with a choreography or writing a song or writing a poem or even painting, is that, pardon me, you don't necessarily have to start at the beginning. So a lot of times we think of time and space and projects as a linear pursuit, but frequently they're not necessarily linear. Like a dream, they can start and germinate at one point and then evolve into something, and then you can edit that or go back and restructure it to what feels genuine or what you think stays or goes. So the idea that something doesn't have to start at the beginning, I think, is really important. The other thing I try to do is to not self-judge, and that's probably one of the hardest things to do as well, because we tend to be our biggest critic and sometimes our worst critic. So that being said, I think it's more important to be able to get the flow and to write however you do, whether that's typing or with pen and paper or scratching things on note cards and then having like an assemblage and putting it together. But the most important thing is to start. So starting is it's essential, because if you don't start, you're not going to get anywhere. The other thing I find that's kind of helpful is to find what your own rhythm is or your own routine. So there's a common, I think, misunderstanding about artistic pursuits is that anything goes and you just are in the flow. But 9 times out of 10, people who are dedicated to their craft find their own type of format that works for them. So frequently writers might designate a time or a window. They might say, from 10 to 11 every morning, I'm going to write. If you're writing on a novel or something much longer, an hour is probably clearly not enough time for that pursuit. So maybe they might structure their day from 10 to 2. They write and they take breaks, they eat, run errands, and maybe they come back in the evening. Some people like to work in the middle of the morning when it's quiet and there's not text messages and emails to respond to. Guilty. Some people admittedly are juggling a lot and they have to catch as catch can. So they write whenever they can and wherever they can. So I would certainly not suggest that it has to be one way for everybody. I think there are very few things in life that are one size fits all. But devoting some time and working on it regularly, just as you would with martial arts, or if you're cooking, or you're learning how to drive, or you have a yoga practice, those things are bound to get better in time, and if not better, certainly more familiar, and there's less lag between that startup and finding to get those roadblocks out of the way between your inspiration and what it is that you want to say, and then actually having that transference of having it from within yourself to outside of yourself. Ooh, okay. So I'm sure there are other things. I will share them as they come along, but those are the ones that come to mind. The other thing is you can never underestimate the opportunity to reflect on your work with some time. So you might write something and you just think it's just utter garbage, and then the next morning or the next week or even 6 months from now or whatever that time may be, you look at it and you may be pleasantly surprised that you even wrote that. So as with anything, I think people they're looking for a genuine experience. So if you write from the heart, that's always the best place to start, in my humble opinion. So what I'd like to do, take you on a little journey. And I regret that I don't have the option right now to have the words behind me, but if you would like, I'd be more than happy to post these on the Art of Life Facebook page so you can read them, because certain poems are going to be a different experience reading them on your own and hearing your own inner voice versus hearing them spoken and read aloud versus performed in a slam type of setting or something that's competitive or even theatrical. So there are different ways that we can enjoy poetry, in addition to different ways that we can find ways to create our poetry. So in no particular order here, with the exception of the first poem, I actually counted. I thought that I wrote 35 poems. I wrote 37. I'm not going to subject you to 37 poems. That's a lot for anybody to digest. But I'd like to share a few of them, some of them which I got some feedback, some that had quite a great deal of traction on Facebook. So this is something I want to just address before I go and launch into reading some of these poems, is that whenever you create something and you put it out there, of course you put yourself out there to be judged. And the reality is that people are going to judge you no matter what you do. That's probably human nature. You don't necessarily have to like it, but you can acknowledge that it exists. So you can write for yourself, and you don't have to put it online or on a blog. You can keep it in that notebook and squirrel it away, and there's really nothing wrong with that, because the art of writing can be very, it can be very therapeutic, but it's also its own type of journey. So, but if you decide to put it out there, I'm just acknowledging that sometimes it's kind of spooky, because you put it out there and you hope that someone's not cutting and pasting and you know, borrowing your stuff. I think that's called plagiarism. You know, but then you have to just come to a point where you release it and you let it go, and you just accept that it's going to be out there. In this day and age of cell phones and people taking photos and using images and likenesses without permission, I think that this is just kind of the universe that we live in. Again, you don't necessarily have to like it, but it's out there. But the flip side of that is that if you choose to share your work, and there are always privacy settings on a lot of social media, and you can determine who your audience is going to be to some degree, you have the option to get some feedback. And that's actually a very valuable thing. So you don't necessarily just want yeomen who say, oh, bravo, everything you do is great, we're going to give you a gold star. You know, people might tell you what they like and what they didn't like and what spoke to them, and in the best case scenario, by following the pursuit of writing or whatever it is that you do creatively, you inspire others to do the same. And so I am extremely humbled and honored when people write to me in private and say, hey, I decided to start writing because I see you throwing these things up on Facebook on a daily basis. That's pretty cool, because I know for myself it's the same thing. When I see other people writing, it inspires me to do the same. So there you go. It's a little nerve-wracking, but you live once, right? It's all good. So prior to April 1st, I wrote a poem kind of like sharpening the saw on the 30th. And this poem is entitled Snowbird. And the snowbird is a reference to the koele, which is a migratory bird who flies all the way from Alaska to Hawaii with no stops. It's pretty remarkable. They come and they hang out here in the winter times. They lay their clutches, they raise their little bird families, they stake out their territory with their spindly little legs. You can hear their bird call at nighttime. They're very distinctive. Some of you might know it as the Golden Plover. If you ever saw the film Winged Migration, about 10 years ago, I think that film came out, they do a great feature just on the Golden Plover. And it's just remarkable to think of the distance that they fly. And then come springtime, when the weather starts getting warm, they pick up and pack up and they leave and they go back to Alaska until they come back to repeat the cycle here in Hawaii. So, snowbird. A golden plover sets sail from Alaska to Hawaii each winter, and on the winds their wings take them places that logic could not navigate. This is not quite a divorce of the mind and the body. Instead, they must coexist, or cease to it all. Ah, but to silence the heart, to quell the doubts within, one must be ruthless and without apology. Second-guessing serves no one. Birds never fill out bubbles with a number 2 pencil, but they are indeed tested daily. Golden plover, snowbird, she who dances on sandy beaches, tiny spindly legs run and stop and pause and run and stop again. Her honey-colored plumes are dotted like freckles, and although she may not trust you, she never doubts herself, knowing she's flown far. Her wings can soar on the winds, and her little legs run fast and quick. So there you go. You got the little plover on the beach. Now, I'm trying to not break out into laughter simply because when I think of poetry, I am very well aware that there are many cliches and a lot of jokes that are made on behalf of the poet. So we will come back to this after we take this little break. This is The Art of Life.
Okay, this is ThinkTech Hawaii, and it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday is Energy Wednesday here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. Come and listen to us. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to ask Sharon to tell us more.
Come and see us every Wednesday, as Jay said. And we have people like Jim Albers from HECO here and co-host Ray Starling here every Wednesday. We not only go on Olelo and OC16, but also stream live. So please come visit us, hear about the latest in clean energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here. You got any comment on all this?
As important as energy is in all of our lives today, this is a great forum and a great format to vet those issues. So I encourage everybody to listen in and participate.
Okay, Ray, what do you think for a close?
Well, I think this is the greatest show in the energy world here in Hawaii. You can come here every week, 1 hour, and catch the latest on what's happening and hear from the people who really know what's going on, like Jim Alberts. We appreciate your coming today.
Thank you.
Ray Starling, Sharon Moriwaki, Jim Alberts, and Jay Fidel here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy.
Aloha.
4 to 5 p.m. Wednesday. Aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. We are a channel dedicated to raising public awareness about the importance of technology, energy, diversification, and globalism to the future of Hawaii. We broadcast and stream daily from 1 to 5 every weekday, and we broadcast on Olelo 54 and OC16 TV. All of our shows are archived on thinktechhawaii.com, and we hope to see you there. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Aloha, this is The Art of Life, and I'm your host, Willow Chang. And if you haven't caught that already, we do have all of our back episodes archived on both YouTube and The Art of Life with Willow Chang on Facebook. So check it out, share a link, tweet, all that good stuff. There's lots of wonderful things to share. It's all about the Share Nation. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some poems that I wrote inspired by the 30 for 30 National Poetry Month Challenge, which was just completed yesterday, the last day of April. But prior to the break, I was talking about fighting the urge to giggle about poetry. So even though this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, I am very well aware that many people might have a stigma against poetry. They might think poets are brooding, mopey people who wear a lot of black, only sometimes. They might think that they're suffering and indulgent and overly emotive, not always the case. They might think that they have a problem with drinkers, not always the case. There's all kinds of poets, as there are different types of poetry. So whether you're a fan of Maya Angelou, or if you like William Carlos Williams, or if you're into rap and you're all about Tupac Shakur, I mean, lyrics, Paul Simon, Sting, some of the most amazing songwriters, Fiona Apple, are amazing poets as well. And so what are lyrics but poetry set to music? So I challenge you to expand your scope of what you consider poetry and hopefully delve some inspiration from that. Moving right along. This next poem was written on the 14th of April, and the inspiration was my dear old dad. He's not with me anymore, but Lord knows I think of him frequently. So this poem is called Hero with a Hole Punch. Some think bold and brash is the way to go, to make a moment last in minds and hearts. But I need no pink elephant on parade, chrysanthemums in the sky on the 4th of July, or even answers to every unending why. It's acts meaningful and small that make the heart fall into place. My papa was a hero with a hole punch, making leather straps on sandals fit for a tiny child's ankle. And I walked with glee with every step, and shoes that now fit, stride right I did, Daddy's girl in new shoes. So there's a lot of poems that have been written about fathers. I learned about Sylvia Plath's poems, and she referenced Dachau and Auschwitz and terrible death camps, and I thought, well, that's definitely nothing that I personally can relate to, but I wanted to honor my dad in a pleasant way, and I thought about that with a quite literal memory of putting on some sandals and reminding myself that I needed to put another hole in the strap because the damn strap was too big. And it made me think of my dad, how he always would use the hole punch and make that hole in the strap so my shoes could fit well. So there you go. I'm a sentimental gal. Another poem. This was written after our celestial showcase of the lunar eclipse. I think last month we had both a lunar and a solar eclipse. How lucky is that? It's not a very frequent occurrence. So I was thinking about the moon, and I decided to write this poem. Hold on, my friends. I'm looking at the bottom. Ooh, it's a long one. April 4th. I wrote this sitting in front of the Sports Authority. Now you're wondering, why is she sharing that? Because when the moment inspires you, you really have to catch it with your big butterfly's net, because not that your experience is mine, but I will tell you, if you think that you're going to remember something 20, 30, 40, an hour, 3 hours from now, chances are it's going to morph into something different, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't make the effort to capture it instantly when it strikes you, you're probably not going to be able to get it the way it's fresh in your mind. So there I was in front of Sports Authority, grabbed my pen and paper, boom, 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 started writing this one. So it is called To Know the Moon is Never Too Soon. Some celebrate the sun and pray for rays. After days of gray, they oil their skin white as winter and never begin to think twice about the moon. The moon, regarded by some as fickle, treated like a cat under the house. But if you learn of the difference of waxing and waning, you couldn't complain of the sting ignorance brings. Truth is illuminated by moon glow. To know the moon is never too soon. She launches 1,000,000 Medusas to the sea. Lacy bells pulse a heartbeat of transparency. Tendrils beckon to watch, but from far away. Fishmongers and divers with plongers, and surfers who sail the sea, divers in the know the tides of today and tomorrow. They know when to play and when to wait. La Luna whispers into every briny ear who wish to hear. Dear farmers know La Luna's fecundity, how earth dances with every phase, hide and seek, show and tell, conceal and reveal. Moon lovers know well, almanacs catalog days and times, to sow, to plant, to harvest. There's a cycle for each best, and why deny the wisdom of those who know the moon and those with soil under their nails? In time you'll find the beauty of the moon is not just to swim. Instead you'll feel gratitude with the harvest moon, delight with the rare pink moon, revelation with every new moon, reflection with every dark moon, restoration paired with celebration with every full moon. La Luna will share when to sleep, when to creep, when to retreat, when your stride should be long, and when to sing moon songs. The secret will remain till you realize there's everything to gain when one learns the difference of waxing and waning. So that was definitely a long poem, and you know, a lot of times people say art doesn't need to be explained, it should stand on its own. But I actually think that that's not necessarily always the case, because if you're dealing with an audience that is unfamiliar with your point of references, or they're not familiar with poetry or opera or musical theater or basket weaving, whatever it is, you lose a vital opportunity to have an educational moment. And it's through education that we can learn to appreciate things. So yes, there's always the visceral. There's always the, dude, that's really cool. I really felt that. I like that. Whatever it is that floats your boat. But a lot of times, it doesn't hurt to explain things. So hopefully that poem was self-explanatory. But you know, there's a movement afoot where people are returning to the earth, and they're growing their own food, and they're thinking about the water sources. They're thinking about agriculture. They want to feel that connection to earth and that stewardship. And then there's a whole lot of people who don't. And so, you know, that was something I was thinking about, because the moon shares with us so much information about being a part of this ecosystem. So there you go. Moving right along, as you can tell, nature inspires me. So here's a short one. When I used to write poetry in my teenage years, I'd always write these really small, kind of clipped, compact poems. It wasn't by design. It's just, I had sometimes what I thought was poetry constipation. I couldn't write these long forms, and I always felt so wimpy in contrast to my peers who would write these long odes. And then I realized, you know, it's not a comparison, and there's all kinds of poetry. And as I'm considerably older now, I can write a long form, but I can also write a short poem, and each of them have their own joys and flavors and unique personality. So here's a shorter one for those who might only have time for a short poem. It's titled, I Take Delight in the Leafy and the Lacy. I take delight in the leafy and the lacy, towering trees, or some sky-sailing clouds. I find little displaces the blues, like these two of a kind do. When the fluffy float by, and the wind blows nigh, and trees dance, and clouds romance, seduce me every time. I fall in love with heaven again and again. I feel like I'm on Prairie Home Companion. So going back to not trying to laugh, one of my favorite Saturday Night Live sketches of all time was David Alan Grier. He did a spot-on impersonation of Maya Angelou, and the whole thing was, you know, Maya Angelou for Fruit Loops, or Maya Angelou for Butterfinger, and the poetry was hilarious, and the delivery was dead on, and it was wonderful to boot. And I have the utmost respect for the late and great Dr. Angelou. I think she probably inspired many a poet, myself included. But this the sketch was fantastic. I'll see if I can find it and put it up on the page. Alrighty, something a little more serious here. So as I mentioned earlier, I was in Portland last week, and even though I was on vacation, the Poetry Challenge doesn't go on vacation just because you're away from home and you're out of your routine. So while I was waiting for the tram, there was this lady, and I decided to write a poem about her. It's called She Hustles. She hustles, raspy voice, quilted parka, too much blush. You got $1? You got $1? Her mantra like a fishmonger or a newsboy, but she peddles nothing but desperation. She paces, walks the length of the light rail station, looking for friendly faces, open hearts, easy targets. You wonder what is her story. We all have one. You give her $1, and you thank your luck. You'll never need to do the same. We'll take a commercial and we'll talk about that. This is The Art of Life.
Aloha, my name is Miley Scarpino, and I'm the host of the Empower Hour. If you're interested in health, nutrition, fitness, here on the island of Oahu, want to learn more about places to train at or different trainers available, then watch my show on Fridays at 3. We have a great time, and I hope that you'll come join us. Much aloha. Now go get swole.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel of ThinkTech Hawaii. Won't you consider helping ThinkTech? We're a 501c3 Hawaii nonprofit corporation, now in our 15th year. Our model and very existence depends on ongoing contributions from our underwriters. We are very appreciative for their support. We're hoping you will consider becoming one of our ThinkTech underwriters. Unless our underwriters prefer to be anonymous, we publicize them on thinktechhawaii.com and on our daily email program sent to some 7,500 subscribers, our live stream talk shows, and our OC16 productions. With help from our underwriters, we have developed a high-tech video studio in Pioneer Plaza, and we now live stream 25 talk shows per week, covering science, tech, energy diversification, community, sustainability, and globalism for Hawaii. And we stream our earlier shows all night long. Our live stream is on thinktechhawaii.com. Check it out. We also upload all our shows to youtube.com, where we get 18,000 views per month. And we broadcast 12 hours per week on Olelo 54 and 3.5 hours per week on OC16. We also do monthly luncheon panel programs at the Laniakea, and we write a monthly column for the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. We're really active. Our plans this year include improving the coverage, content, and production values of all of our programs, and including more issues and guests relating to the neighbor islands, either by Skype or in person. If you agree with our mission, I hope you'll consider helping us. If you have any questions about any of our activities, or if you'd like to discuss our underwriter arrangements, please write to me at j@fidel.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for considering this suggestion, maybe even including you among our underwriters. Mahalo, I'm Jay Fidel of ThinkTech Hawaii, and I approve this message. If you approve of it also, please give us a call.
Inspired by an ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance, Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
Aloha, this is The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang. I'm also your resident poet, and we are visiting some of the poems that I wrote for the 30 for 30 National Poetry Challenge. I hope that these poems inspire you. The last one I wrote, called She Hustles, was about a woman who was working the light rail system for, let's call them, donations. And it was interesting because upon posting this poem, it then incited people to have a dialogue about homeless people and about, you know, what they think is the appropriate thing to do. And you know, that's the thing that you can do, is when you write your poetry, I'm not necessarily saying that you're like the biggest agent of change, you know, I'm not here changing legislature, but the thing is it encourages people to think about the people in their neighborhood, the things that they go, the people who are asking for $1. I mean, you know, it's good to think about it, and it's hopefully judgment-free. She did have a lot of blush on, and I'm a makeup fan, so I just want to be clear that that wasn't intended to be mean. Anyway, this is another poem that was written in Portland a couple days ago, and again inspired by people that I saw on the light rail. It's called Legions of Brown. Across this country, moving around, moving around, moving around, the medicine man told me about easy wanderings, and I wonder as I wander about the moving around, moving around. The legions of brown, brown people in moving trains, carted off from cities to suburbs, daily grind, East Coast, West Coast, Pacific Northwest, brown men with button-down shirts, pen protectors, promotional windbreakers, men who know code, men married to the computer, army of IT. The legions of brown roll down the hallways. Juanita, Maria, Talia call out and knock on the doors of wanderers, carting small goods to restock rooms, pens and notepads and soap and lotion, scrubbing the floors no more, but turning over the bed, hoping to find a buck or two left behind for a job done. Magazines and takeout clamshells left behind by wanderers. Brown people waiting to fix your fence, dig your ditch, mend your roof, name your price. Brown people running, the car is ready, operators standing by. Small pill hold the thrill and rob dose by dose. The harvest of a million poppies so far away leaches the life force of the former high school football stars and the checkout gal at the mall. Everyone on their way, making a buck, sending it away, paying the rent, wasting away, easy wandering. Who am I to say? So that's some of our workforce that sometimes are a little underrepresented and maybe invisible, but they're there. They're there. Alrighty, moving right along. So one of the challenging things to do is knowing when to stop and when to edit and what have you. And I would add to that list is knowing what do you name your poem. I'm pretty consistent where I frequently will take a line from the poem, and frequently I'll just take the first line of the poem. I know that might sound intellectually lazy, but if you think about the Bible or a hymnal, a lot of times those are referenced by the first line, and so sometimes I work with that and sometimes I don't. This poem is called Song of the City, and it's not the first line of the poem, so there's always variation. Song of the City. You traded in sleepy Sundays and small talk of the small town you knew as a child for tall coffee and tall buildings and the echo of horns, honking, four-wheeled geese of the road. Where 24 hours isn't just the number of hours in the day, but a selling point, a schedule to fill, where overtime is the norm. You move, you hustle, you're carried on the bustle of the city. Red lights, underground tubes take flight, carting the dreamers from station to station, chasing the life, chasing away exhaustion, but in the quiet calm, unlocked by a set of 3 keys, you can finally breathe in a room you call yours. You remember that small town, and you never forget the scent of blossoms of your neighbor's gardenia trees. Alrighty. It's kind of a strange format to just read your poem to a camera, but that's what we're doing here on The Art of Life. I wrote this poem called Handsome Men Rarely Have Handsome Hearts. My goodness, the traction on this, the discussion, it was a war of the sexes. Men and women both were chiming in with personal experiences and gonging men who are good looking and saying that women do the same, and you can come to your own conclusions. It's really written with nobody in mind, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's autobiographical, I would just say it's observational. Here we go. Handsome men rarely have handsome hearts. Handsome men rarely have handsome hearts. Beautiful teeth and long legs, hide foil starts. They are often the mayor of an unnamed town. They stand on parceled land for a library that hasn't broken ground. Their well is still, sometimes static. Sometimes their avoidance of truth is manic. They want to coast on by looks. You'll never meet handsomer crooks. Maybe the term voleur has more cachet. Why pay for it now, what you can steal today? With your smile, your guile, if you charm them, the robbery will feel worth their while. Handsome men, it's got to come to an end. The first way and only solution is to fall in love with a friend. That's from April 8th. I have a note here. It says beach poetry. So if you do look at these poems and you say, what on earth? Parking poetry and car poetry and beach poetry. To me, it's just kind of a notation to remember where the inspiration hit and where I wrote it. So you can write a poem on the beach. You don't have to just play volleyball or put on SPF 50. You can create something. You never know when that moment is going to arise and move you. Just to let you know, voleur is the French word for a thief. And cachet, well, cachet is kind of like having panache or style or some savoir-faire. I just used one French word to explain another French word. Forgive me. Okay, we don't have much time left. So this was dedicated to my mom because she likes to say my poetry is too long. And that was the impetus and the prompt for this poem, and I love her dearly. It's called, I may not write the next rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I may not write the next rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Perhaps the only odyssey I will write is my own. And today, who remembers the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam? But I will still write. I spent a life of haiku, small steps like a young foal learning to walk, small clips, well edited, to reach this point of now, of flow, of fearlessness, of the poetic long form. But I will still write. Maybe not clinging only to pen and paper. Sometimes I furiously tap, click and peck, the keyboard like a bird, scratching for seed, the stream from my mind too fast to tether, but I try, damn it, at least I try. And when I remember that you think I love ballads too much, that I move too slowly, that I am, quote, too sensitive, expressed as fact, not opinion, when I remember you don't understand my need to whirl, to twirl, to spin, urban Sufi in the living room, I understand. I understand. I understand all I need to know. There you go. Now I'm dropping some poetry there. We got 2 minutes, which is just never enough time. So I am going to leave this with you. Soul Becomes Soft is a poem I wrote after The Art in the Ink, which was a show based on the Heart Sutra, a Buddhist text on impermanence. So here we go. Soul becomes soft. There is no way to be, just be. Love and let love. Breathe, always breathe. Dance on the wind like a dandelion seed. Spin in the living room, urban Sufi. Anoint your skin and feel the dry become soft. Let your soul become soft. Love and let love. So I thank you for being there and listening to these poems. I hope that you might want to pick up pen to paper or tap something out. Start it off. You can collect words. You can get magnetic poetry. You can use index cards. You don't have to share it with anybody. Maybe you want to just speak into your phone and do a voice recording. There's so many ways to pursue the art of poetry. And the most important thing is if you follow your heart and if you breathe, you're bound to create something that is truly unique to you. And I encourage you with that endeavor. And I hope one day that we can share poetry as well. Stay tuned for another wonderful show on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll see you next week with The Art of Life. I'm your host, Willow Chang Alion. Aloha.